Hello. Just as you get things working, guess what happens? You need glasses. And then lights and glasses don't get along. So I'm going to take them on and off because I need to buy new lights now. I need to, not new lights, new lens so that I can do different configuration of lighting without it fucking things up. I can see without it, kind of. But, getting old. Fuck it. I'll do it without the glasses. It's going to drive me nuts otherwise. It's going to be too distracting. I was going to wear them, but the lights are in my eyes, and I was like, fuck that shit. It's going to be distracting. So, anyway, hello. I don't know if people are here, but okay. So, just wait a minute. Normally I have titles and shit, but I've just been a bit all discombobulated. So, anyway, let me just find what I was going to talk about. There's a few things I want to talk about. Again, it's just more getting muscle back again. Not feeling it today, but got to get back to the grind. It's easy, I think. We're sort of coming out of this thing, and New South Wales aside and flare ups aside and all these things with COVID to I don't know about you. I'm trying to be careful with my words here because this is, it is actually pretty fucking serious. I mean, I'm not being hyperbolic when in the description of this video when I say, I think that we need to be very careful and aware of how precarious things are at the moment, because we're coming off the back of what a lot of us saw as temporary transfers of power. Okay, because of what was necessary. Some of you fought it hard and, went, yeah, government, you can't tell me what to do. Well, people with fucking brains just went, well, some things are just necessary. Science is, I tend to be fairly science-based. I tend to leave it to, well, up until recently, I tend to just defer to authority. It's in my personality to do so. But I think that that's one of the things that we need to be a little more cautious about. I mean, I tend to not respect. Okay. I went through life thinking that our leaders were competent. Don't laugh. I know. I'm just saying. I think a lot of us went through this training, I guess, for lack of a better word. We were raised this way, socialized this way, to think that those who were in power, or those who had, millionaires or billions of dollars, or those who were on TV, or those who got published, or, those who were elected to office were better than us or smarter than us. And I don't know where I picked this up. I don't know where. I think we just get, I don't know. Because my natural inclination is to not respect authority generally, without it being, I tend to be in the camp of that respect is earned rather than assumed, right? That's something that I was just wired that way. My parents tried to tell me to respect their authority. Didn't fucking work. I always had my own mind, I mean, everyone has their own mind. You know what I mean? I always had a strong sense of independence, strong sense of sort of right and wrong. And if I didn't know something, I would figure it out for myself. I'd soldier on. And I'd try to, figure it out myself and look at the people ahead of me. And that's one thing. I think, again, this is in business as well, particularly, where you're sort of taught to look at those ahead of you who succeeded and do what they do, and you'll succeed too. I think, I don't know about you, but But, we've had quite the 18 months to reflect on these things. And I've been talking about this a little bit. When COVID first hit, I don't know if you remember, but I pointed out, and I've pointed out many times since, that in 2020, we were going about our day. Okay. Some of us were going about our day a little less critically than others. I was already kind of questioning a lot of things anyway, because I'd already been, called a turf. I'd already had my third life-threatening illness. I'd been going through it for a little while before it hit anyway. Okay. But we were going about our day. And all of a sudden, there's this tension where, for better or worse, it became, okay, well, there's a pandemic on. What the fuck does that mean? Okay. Everyone became experts in pandemics pretty fucking fast. Remember that? Where people went from being experts in the Constitution of the United States and experts in fascism and experts in neuroscience and gender. And for a brief period, we all decided collectively that we were experts in viruses. I'm not an expert in viruses. I don't know about you, but so I kind of went, you know what? All right, let's listen to the experts. That sounds good. That sounds like a good idea. I think we should do that. I think we should definitely do that. I think there's too many people who present themselves as knowledgeable in areas where they shouldn't have an opinion. I think that should that's been a large problem with the internet. And again, is it a net good? Is it a net gain? Is it doing net harm? We don't know yet. We were in it. Until you're outside of it, we don't really know what the net impact of the net is. Now, bear with me. We're just talking today. I'm just talking because I want to just fucking do this. But all of a sudden, everyone on the internet went from being experts in fucking everything else to being experts in viruses. And I went, you know what? Okay, well, you guys who were experts in politics didn't know much about politics up until now. So I'm just going to assume that you don't know shit about shit. And I'm just going to watch these people who present themselves as experts in all things. Okay. Good people. A little bit Dunning-Kruger. The IDW is a little bit Dunning-Kruger, let's be honest. And then you start seeing this sort of overreach where people are questioning the experts. And I went, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't do that right now. Maybe the timing's off. Maybe there's a crisis on. Okay. Maybe our leaders want what's best for us. Maybe the billionaires might realize that to be a billionaire in terms of individual net worth is a failure of a free economy rather than a sign of its success. Because I would argue that in a free market, there's no such thing as a billionaire. Okay. That's for another day. I'm just saying. But let's just put yourself in the seat of just. I'm trying to universalize this experience. Let's get outside of. Let's get outside of the sort of political differences that we had. Let's just get to the human experience of having eyes and ears. Now, of course, no one experience is the same, obviously. The better off you were in the pandemic, the better off you are going to be, from the outset. Not always the case. Like if you're, in the arts or working in jobs that depend on you to be, or events or those sorts of things, then obviously it's a different story. But generally speaking, there was already pretty. There was a class consciousness there. But we happily ignored it. We ignored it. We just ignored it. We went, "Oh, well, like me. I'm talking shit. I'll warm up. I always do. Bear with me." But if you're like me, you're a very different person from where you were 18 months ago. I'm a much different person from where I was 3 years ago, and even more from 5. And yeah, like if you knew me 5 years ago, I'm a very different person to where I was then. Um, but so I already had a bit of a, again, I had a bit of a head start. I think those of us who were sort of in the turf wars or in the gender wars or in this sort of thing were already sort of had a head start in what we thought was some weird, strange morphing of the left wing of politics. Now, I'm not speaking slowly for impact or effect. I'm just sitting here, let's just have a thought. Now, feel free to comment. This is an okay comment stream. All right. I'm not ranting or anything. I don't have a script. Just sitting here. This is a do nothing, talk nothing, say nothing. Friday afternoon. Taya hasn't streamed for fucking ever and watched her video back and realized that she's fucking shit. So I'm just sitting here and talking. But I also just want to get some stuff off my chest because I really have, I don't know, it's really hard to know. I mean, obviously, I've talked about, with the publishing platform and the tech and, all of those things, I've had to direct all of this energy somewhere, despite it feeling extremely delicate and futile, despite it feeling like I'm just going to lose, okay? And despite all evidence that it's fucking stitched up. As much as I go on about being, well, you can be a Marxist and still believe in the market. That's, Marxism is an economic model. But I still have to believe that thing that I was raised to believe, which was that the good guys win, and that if you work hard and you're a good person and you tell the truth and you don't go out of your way to hurt anybody. Again, comedy, exemption, art, comedy, exemption. But if you don't go out of your way to hurt people, okay, in the traditional sense, okay, fuck your feelings. I don't give a fuck. But I also don't like hurting people's feelings generally. I don't go out of my way to do it. Okay. I generally don't punch down. And this is the thing that I'm going through at the moment, which is, and I'm sure a lot of people are going through the same thing. Like I've been going on LinkedIn and every day just writing some template, stupid, satirical thing about LinkedIn where I'll just go in and write whatever, take the piss out of people who continue to post on LinkedIn. But I just want to know, right? I know my energy is a bit different. I'm just trying to be a little just more considered and slow. I'm practicing slow speaking and thinking rather than the fucking manic energy that you're used to. I'm trying different things. You get to watch me practice things. And flirt with the camera with my glasses on and do the librarian thing if I can get the fucking lights to work. Anyway, so, but every time, let's just talk about LinkedIn just for a second, because it's all related. I will get there. Okay. I'll log on to LinkedIn and I'll just see people, because because of my previous business, I've got a lot of connections in tech. I've got a lot of Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, PayPal, all those people. I got like digital marketers. I got a lot of agency people, like advertising agency people. Okay. Got a lot of connections in that space. And it's interesting to watch people trying to go back to normal And I think if you were awake at all during this last 18 months, that you you're gonna find it very hard to see things in the same light. I don't this is the thing. I was talking about this last night. I go onto LinkedIn. I log on and I love LinkedIn. Actually, you know what? It's actually for me, for comedy particularly. LinkedIn is pretty low hanging fruit, okay? Because no one says anything. So if you're the person that zags when everyone's zigging, LinkedIn, strategically speaking, if I was advising you on a marketing strategy, if you're sort of a bit contrary or a comedian, you go onto LinkedIn and you just do LinkedIn fucking comedy. It's a good audience. Okay, it's actually one of the few places where you can actually make quite an impact by joking. Number of people have been banned, but you have to not be that invested in LinkedIn. It's a good place for humor and you get away with a lot, okay? Because it's basically a room full of crusty cunts all the time. Who wouldn't want to, if you're a comedian, that's like fucking, that's like bees to pollen for me, okay? If you want me to show up to your event, tell me that it's going to be a dry event and there's going to be lots and lots of very serious people and lots of long, boring speeches. That's the perfect way to get me to show up to anything because I'll show up. Anyway, but you log on to LinkedIn and I find it funny because I'm kind of watching this weird, there's a chill in the air. Definitely not a chill. There's a actual frosty chill. It's definitely not chill. But what I'm seeing, okay, and it's just I think because I see it from different angles, I sit there and I watch all of these people scrambling for some normalcy or to make sense of the world. Okay, LinkedIn is just really funny like that, where the brand virtue signaling is out of sight. It's absolutely out of sight. Everyone's got a fucking rainbow logo. Everyone is fucking doing push-ups for cancer. I don't know. I'll say I don't know who. I can't remember who it was. So I'm not picking on you. If we're connected and you watch this, it wasn't you. That I'm not. I can't remember who it was. I'm just using it as an example. You've got fucking. You got thirsty fucking digital marketers who have been the bane of my existence my whole career. The people who started in real estate and then then called themselves SEOs, then called themselves digital strategists, then called themselves life coaches, and now call themselves diversity consultants. Those people, the people who are always on a fucking grift, right? Those people. The people who rely on events and lies to sell tickets to their things, okay? And they're not actually experts. They just ruin what they do is they ruin every fucking job title that they touch. And I was actually somebody who was positioned very early on in digital strategy. That was the title that I had. I was a digital strategist very early on. And then these cunts move in and start calling themselves digital strategists and start asking me for coffee to pick my brains. It's funny. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn fucking shits me. It shits me, but I love it. I love to hate LinkedIn. But I love to hate capitalism too. That's the thing. It's always a love-hate relationship with me. I could be a brutal ass business person. I can be a brutal capitalist. If you fuck me over, I'm like, nah, fuck that. Let the market decide. Rapscally, let the market decide. I'm not. All right then, malicious compliance. If you think Twitter that you could just ban everyone you disagree with and say, hey, the market can decide, and then you just shut down all your competitors. Well, I'm going to call you on that, and I'm going to set up my own thing and see if you cancel me, because I think that maybe you're full of shit. I think maybe you lied. I think maybe you told a little bit of a fib about what you were doing. And like I said in the other video the other day, which is that basically somehow Twitter ended up being that LinkedIn fuck that fools you into doing free work for them. Right? The CIA got Twitter to get us to do their fucking data entry. How did we end up there? It's odd. Anyway, but it's interesting to see people. I've talked about this in 2028. It's been interesting to see people trying to scramble, trying to rationalize, okay, trying to just act like it's possible to go back to normal. Right. And I'm finding it funny watching these people talk about, I love the people. I love the thing. This is my favorite fucking thing on LinkedIn right now. Is people who talk about how fucking COVID was basically like a fucking writer's retreat. And I was like, yeah, I know when I'm having a global pandemic with a fucking respiratory lung disease that I want some dumb fuck to walk me through some deep breathing exercise. Breathe in, everyone. That'll fix it. Just breathe more. Lean in. Breathe better. Disabled people should just grow legs. And autistic people should just be better, more people. They should just try harder to not be irritated by flickering lights. They should just try harder. This is the thing about like, oh, Judith. Hi, Judith. So we're just talking shit. So you just arrived is good because you missed the part where I started just getting off. So anyway, so Judith is here. Hello. We're saying hello. Oh, look, StreamYard got better graphics. And I can't decide whether I want glasses on or off, but I need a new lens so I can turn lights down so that I can have that, because otherwise there's lights in my fucking eyes and it drives crap out of me. But I also might think, if I get my tits out and wear these like this and like flirt with the camera a little, I think I might get a little more donation. What do you reckon? A few more donations in this. Maybe like do the hot librarian, or I'm deluding myself and I look old. Oh, well. Anyway. What was I saying? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going on LinkedIn. So I go on LinkedIn and I'm watching people. And again, you know, I'm studying the psychology of this stuff. I'm working through it piece by piece and applying all this theory and watching sort of things like normalcy bias and watching just the grief play out in real time. On LinkedIn of all places, because LinkedIn is interesting because it's the place where you're supposed to fucking be professional and you're supposed to be polite, unless you're like me and you don't give a fuck, because LinkedIn is the world's HR department and I don't have one. That's all right, Judith. You can just I'll flirt with you for free. The men pay, the women get it for free. Okay, how's that sound? Does that sound good? I'll flirt with you for free. So anyway, so the man's grab, it's been funny. And this is the thing. I've just thought I'd just talk about. I will get to the point where I'll talk a little bit about fascism. There may be a clip in this. There may be not. We're just chatting. But I don't know about you, but I'm finding it very difficult. Very, very, very difficult to reconcile that it's ever possible to be normal again. And I've had it good, you know, in terms of, you know, obviously my business collapsed. Okay. So, you know, like as much as I talk about, you know, the bravados, it wasn't really because I was speaking out or anything. It was probably just a combination of things, right? I just fucking doubled down because I talked about this before, which was, you know, I have first of all severely underestimated. I know I was naive about this gender thing. And this is linked to what I was saying before about how, you know, we were raised. Our Molly's here. Hello, our Molly. So it's good to see everybody. Oh, okay. But I was raised. It's very strange because I was kind of raised in between worlds. I grew up I was raised, for those that don't know, I was raised by my grandmother for the most part of my life. Okay. Me and my mother weren't close. I'm not going to get into that, but whatever. Okay. Um, I was raised by my grandmother who was Irish Catholic. Okay. She grew up in Cork and, in um, the 30s, Ireland in the 30s. She was born to an unwed mother who it's details are sketchy because she never really spoke about her childhood. Okay, but things that I do know are that she grew up in one of those either a Magdalene laundry, okay, or one of those like asylums for unwed mothers. So I think they had like the mother and baby places and like the prisons for fucking those for unclean women. Her mother was unmarried. Her mother, was getting around different kids to different fathers and stuff like that. My grandma had two older brothers and a younger sister, and I think her brothers had a different father to her. My grandmother never knew her father, and she had a little sister as well, who I also believe had a different father. Her mother died when she was 7, and her sister died around the same time. Again, the timeline's hazy, but she never really talked much about it. I've always wanted to go and visit Ireland and write a book about that experience, like growing up in a convent, because I'd love to get that story told, because I think it's something that um, it it's something that it informs my feminism just through her life. And it's hard to see gender versus sex when you have been raised by somebody like that, who grew up, who was raised by nuns, whose mother was basically locked up, okay, because she was unwed in Catholic Ireland. And but here's something else. My grandmother was also raised when her mother died, sorry, my point. When her mother died, her brothers were taken in by their uncle, okay? My grandmother was left to go to the convent and be raised, and her younger sister passed away. Right? That's a fuck ton of pain, okay? That's also very sex-based story, okay? So I grew up with a very, very real understanding of class, understanding of sex, and also one thing that's worth mentioning, look at my eyes. See my eyes? She was also Romani, okay? My great-grandmother was Romani, unmarried, and put into an institution because she was, a young, poor Romani Catholic woman, okay? So that was my main influence growing up. The thing that was always interesting about my grandmother, to her dying day, was, first of all, she's very similar to me. There was a naivety. To tell her story, she was a tough fucking woman. She was tough, right? Tough ass woman. And then she married my granddad, gambler, fucking philanderer, all that sort of stuff. Okay. Working class, working class. She worked her guts out her whole life. Had my dad and my uncle. They didn't appreciate it. Granddad treated her like shit. My dad treated her like shit. My dad was an alcoholic. Okay, fall down drunk. And I lived with him, and my grandmother raised me. That's why. When I went to live with my dad, my grandmother came out of retirement at like 65 and cleaned hotels. Okay. And this is like, those pubs where they'd have the permanent residents, like Faulty Towers, but like a seedy pub. My grandmother used to clean that hotel, and I used to go and hang out. I spent a lot of my time in pubs growing up. It's actually quite funny. Between my grandma, I used to go hang out with the residents in the lounge there, like read the magazines. You'd find weird fucking porn shit in the rooms, and she'd show me how to fold a towel properly and make beds properly. And she took pride in that work. She took pride in her work. She took, it might have just been making beds. It might have just been doing that. But everything that she did properly, and she did with pride and with love. And that was something that she, like with cooking and cleaning and whatever job she did. Like she had an opportunity to work with computers in the 70s, and she was working, I think she was working doing something at the bank. Again, she wasn't a talker. She wasn't a sharer. I get that part from my mum, but um, my grandmother never really shared. But she said that she was really interested in computers in the 70s, and she was working at a bank, and she was very interested in these big ass fucking computers and the sort of logic behind them. But somehow she just, because my granddad didn't want her to work, she just ended up, she just, yeah, she worked in the, oh, that's right. My granddad wanted to start a bakery. So she left and did the books there. So that was something that's my understanding. Again, my grandmother was always the person who just held everyone together and kept everything together. And so when she died, everyone fucking just splintered in two, right? Anyway, so, but she was sort of the matriarch, but she had this very strange thing because you'd think that she'd grow up cynical. And it's the same thing with me where I've had things happen in my life. But she, up to her dying breath, she never questioned the church. She never questioned her faith. She never questioned, she looked to authority, but in a naive way. So unfortunately, I got my dad's gene. My dad was just like, yeah, fuck yous all. I don't care anymore. But I kind of understand why he got there and how he got there. Because my grandmother also she was naive and she was funny and she was smart and razor sharp and crazy as fuck. Very similar personality to me. But a product of the 1930s, a product of, her class, a product of her sex, product of her life. Okay. And so, but her influence on me, I've got this weird relationship with power, this weird relationship, because I think when you grow up working class and a girl and a poor, there's this narrative that we're told, which is that, like I said, that those that are in power, and I think that this, again, I think, again, if you know about personality, I'm doing a lot of personality psych at the moment, so I'm learning a lot about that. But how sort of, our genetic makeup intersects with our experiences and our lifestyle and our all those sorts of things. Some things are heritable, some things are not. A lot more of it is genetic than you'd think, like having a genetic predisposition to certain things, and like lots and lots of different combinations of genes. So it's partially genetic, but it's also through modeling and learning, right? So what I learned from an early age was that if you work really hard and you do the right thing and you go to university, I got into my head very young that I wanted to go to university. Like one of my different grandmother, my mum's mum, one of her favorite things to tell everyone is that when I was 2 years old, I was telling everybody that I'm going to university. For some reason, as a kid, I just somehow in my head, it was the sign, the signal or the symbol. Excuse my malaprops there. It was a symbol of getting out of everything. It was all of the people that I admired went to university. None of my family did. Okay. And I'm not saying I didn't admire my family for different reasons. I'm just saying that university seemed to be the thing that rich people did and that successful people did. So in my autistic, fucking naive, idealist brain, in a Myers-Briggs world, I would be considered an INFP. Okay. In your big five personality, I'm high on openness, pretty low on conscientiousness. You seem shocked. Why are you surprised? Stop acting surprised. Stop laughing. I'm fairly low in conscientiousness. Actually not low in neuroticism, believe it or not. Okay. Which is interesting. I tend to play a neurotic on TV, but I'm actually pretty straight. I'm not turbulent. I don't have that sort of turbulence that a neurosis. I'm pretty level-headed. So your openness, conscientiousness, extroversion. I'm fairly introverted, but again, extroversion is not that simple. But yeah, on the extroversion scale, I'm about average. Agreeableness. I'm generally agreeable, except on certain things where I'm right. And that's, so again, it's a very complex system of multiple factors, but generally I'm agreeable. And what was it? So it's like openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neurosis. And then you've got hexaco, which includes like humility or that sort of thing. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But we won't talk about that later. We'll talk about it in another video when I'm doing psych theory stuff, whatever. So you test as an INTJ, Judith Ann. Yeah. So we all tend to flock together, us INs. Again, a Myers-Briggs is not perfect. It's been replaced, and but it is, again, it's a scale and a spectrum of things, and like I think people wouldn't have me pegged necessarily for an introvert unless first of all, know what introversion is. Most people don't, and also because introversion is not really a thing. Which is, it's more about extroversion and how much you need and crave the company of other people, and how much you seek validation from others and all that sort of stuff. How externalized. So with extroversion, one thing that makes me more introverted than, say, your classical introvert would be the fact that I externalize my stress and my emotions. I actually realized that I like streaming because it actually allows me to just vent and let stuff out and talk. If I don't let things, I don't process internally, I process outwards. That's why, when I use Twitter, I use it to process. I write shit, I say shit that I probably, in retrospect, shouldn't say. I still do have some filter, but I am an external processor of like thoughts. That's why this is kind of like my therapy. But I often, if I don't talk things out, or express myself, or verbalize things, I tend to go a little bit fucking crazy. And or Paul gets home and he fucking gets an unloading of fucking 4 hours of shit. So if I'm sitting there on Twitter talking and chatting, it's usually because I'm just sitting there. It's very much an inner process, right? But also in times of stress or upset, I absolutely 100% need to talk to somebody about it. I can't, if I sit there and I'm a ruminator, and I will ruminate. That again, that's where sort of neurosis overlaps with introversion. Again, it's more complicated than that, but I'm just saying, in terms of traits, I know where I fit. But I'm INFP. For those that know, your traditional, I very, very much test as an INFP, except, as I get older, I think it's more because I just have more confidence and I just don't give a fuck, that I'm sort of more ENFP and more extroverted as I get older. But I think that's more just a sign of fucking running out of steam. But anyway, so I'm an idealist. Okay. So in the traditional Myers-Briggs, I'm talking like idealism is probably what we want to talk about again. I tend to be on the idealist spectrum of personalities. A healer idealist is what the INFP is. Okay. So again, I know that this is all not the scientific psychological shit. We'd be talking about Hexaco or Ocean or, various, or Big Five or whatever, but I just like Myers-Briggs because most people are familiar with it. And it's, there is some science under it, even if it's been, somewhat replaced. But my personality sits with sort of, the sort of healer idealist type. A thinker, a talker, a sharer, a helper, right? How can I help people? How can I be of service? And I know that you might laugh at that, but, like the way that I behave on a stream when I'm being a fuckhead and just performing is very different, or online, it's very different to how I am as a person. I will help. I'll give people the shirt off my back if it will help them, okay? And so I think going through 2020 is very difficult when you're an idealist, okay, like me. Because first of all, idealists are very, very hard. It's very hard to navigate through the world when you see it through rose-colored glasses. And I do tend to do that. As much as I rant and yell and shit, it's actually very much a coping strategy for me, is to make dark humor. Dark humor is my coping strategy. It's externalizing again, right? Getting to the truth of the matter. Getting to a joke is getting to the truth, and it's the same process. And so because I'm truth seeking, a joke is the easiest way to do that. And the vehicle of Twitter, limited words, up until they fucking ruined it with threads. But, generally speaking, Twitter used to be how you get to truth, how you get to the core message in something. That's why I'm good at advertising, why I'm good at messaging, because I'm good at stripping everything of everything and getting to the point, stripping it of its jargon, of its complexity, and just finding the right words. I love that. Okay, so something that I love. That's an art. That's the art of words and persuasion is something that is well, an increasingly worrying art form. But I mean it in the stricter sense, the old school advertising sense. So Judith said, I practice extrovert type behavior, but to recharge, you need alone time. Yeah. And so it really just depends on what your limits are. But every time I test with most of the, even the sixth, oh my God, for uni, I had to do the proper full on 6,000 questions personality test to learn how, because obviously if you're going to be administering these types of things, the really big one, the big five with like 6,000 questions. And I basically, actually, hang on, I shouldn't say that. I didn't do it. What I did is what I did was I confirmed my ADHD diagnosis because I went to do the test. I did about 100 questions and went, this is boring. And I did the one with 100 questions, and so good enough. Congratulations. You're the exact same personality type that you know you are because you've been to therapy and you've done all the work. And also, guess what? You've got ADHD and you found it boring. Congratulations, you're a busy mum. So, but yes, every test that I do, I test introverted. But I imagine that those tests are a little bit more complicated. Probably they exist for a reason. And one day I will sit and do that. I've got to do it at some point. I would not administer a test that I haven't taken myself. But it's just like, fucking hell. Congratulations, you've got ADHD. Try to get through this questionnaire. And you try to do your taxes. Congratulations, rubber stamp. Anyway, so I grew up like, again, that idealist personality. Now, if you're familiar with that kind of personality, you'll know that there is nothing more fucking depressing than somebody. Like, realists tend to deal with things a bit better than somebody who's an idealist, because idealists, this is what I started the video talking about. I know I've waffled, but we're just having a chat. This could be a long one. But there's this, I have had to really go through, and I'm still going through it. If I'm honest with you, I'm still going through it, and I don't know what the other side looks like. It kind of looks, I've got a little bit of hope. Again, building things and making things and taking control of things and trying to seize control of things when they're scary is my MO. Right. When my grandma got diagnosed with a brain tumor, I learned everything there was to know about brain tumors. And I basically just learn everything that I can, because that's how I learn to control my feelings. Because if I can rationalize things, then I can deal with it. And that's part of why I spent so long on this culture wars stuff and came out the other side. And, I've come to this. And that's why when people ask me, what do I know about this and what authority I've got, it's like, well, first of all, I don't quit till I've got the answer. I don't quit till I've got the answer. I don't quit till I know, for my own satisfaction. I'm like a dog with a bone. I have to know what's happening. And now I know what's happening. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't. Also, I'm, smart. I went to university, studied politics. And, I did all the right things. Is it time for my award now, where people go, congratulations, Taya, we're going to listen to you now? Doesn't work that way, does it? That's what we found out. We found out that, you can just say things loudly with confidence and be a cam girl, basically, and dickheads with fistfuls of dollars will just throw money at you while you add to the problem. It's a perplexing situation. Anyway, so how do you see, this is the thing that I was talking about with LinkedIn, with everyone scrambling, but also it's just funny because the other day, my plumber was here, and my plumber's like full EQ. He's awesome. He's funny, interesting guy. He's one of those people that's come to all the right conclusions, but the way he got there was a little bit batshit. But he's come to the same conclusion. So him and I can engage in certain things. And we're talking about how the thing that's rocked me in the last week was the BlackRock buying up all the houses, the hedge funds buying up all of the houses. It's not just happening in America or the UK, it's happening literally everywhere, okay? In Perth, Western Australia, houses are going for about, they're going for 40% over market. They're not even getting on the books. I have a feeling that we were kicked out of our last rental because our landlords bought the house at the peak of the market, but it wasn't when COVID hit, it wasn't worth that. So they were renting it out and they couldn't sell it. But I have a feeling that they got an offer above asking and were able to boot us out, but they can't yet. So that was interesting. But it turns out, because I was like, well, why is everybody fucking lining up for our house? What's going on? What's the fucking problem here? And it turned out that BlackRock are buying up all the fucking real estate. Hedge funds and all these people are buying up all the real estate to artificially inflate the market, knock everything down, build apartment blocks, and fucking put us all in it renting. Fucking scary. I don't want to live in an apartment. So it's like, anyway. So, that's the side point. So that's one thing that I've seen. But the last 18 months, what have we seen? I went through my life thinking that if you just worked hard and did the right things and did what people said, and if people were good and were nice to you, like through business, you get ripped off a lot, okay? My personality type is not good for business because I tend to believe people and that's partially autism as well, is being easily led and being a little bit gullible. I've had to learn to just not trust as easily. Even when I want to trust people, I have to just not trust them. And that's why I had a conversation with someone yesterday. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, we don't have a deal until there's a signed contract and money in the bank. It's not a deal until then, because I've just been, dangled so many times and I believe people and they fuck it, whatever. So that's just business. So I've had to exercise that muscle quite a bit anyway, because I tend to see the best in people. Okay. I empathize. I'm that person who empathizes with serial killers. I'm that person who empathizes. Well, God, take that shit out of context. I empathize with my enemy. I tend to be charitable. I tend to be, okay. YouTube, performance. Twitter, comedy, different, exceptions. Generally speaking, in a serious situation or generally whatever, if I tell someone and there's a misunderstanding in my chats and I tell someone to fuck off or whatever, and there's a misunderstanding, I generally feel bad. And you'll notice that if I've gotten defensive or said something, I've usually messaged you and gone, oh, sorry, I didn't mean it. Streaming's hard. It's like driving 8 cars at once. It's just, and one troll fucking can derail things. Doesn't mean they get to me. It's just on stream. It's like flashing me while I'm working at a drive-through. Outside of the drive-through, I'd probably laugh and think it was fine and it would be whatever, but it's my place. It's just a place where it's like a bit more of a pressure cooker because you're just waiting for the fucking other foot to drop. Also, performance anxiety because I'm not naturally a performer. But it's oh yeah. So you go through this, you go, okay, so if I just work harder and try harder and win contracts and do pitches, get my pitch right, develop the right product, and those rich ladies are telling me that, I should just lean in and be nicer and stuff. And I've got all these people telling me that I should not be so negative all the time. And I was like, well, they're more successful than me, so I should listen to them. That's the rules, isn't it? Isn't that the rules of business? Isn't that how they pull rank on you? Well, if you knew what you were doing, if you knew it all, you'd be successful, wouldn't you, Taya? That's that shitty move that NLP uses. You know, the dodgy business people? That's a fucking mind trick. Well, you'd be more successful, wouldn't you, if you knew what you were doing? Why don't you listen to those that are more successful? And I went, well, that seems fair. Okay. So every time. 15 years in business. I'd listen to those that were more successful. I'd have meetings with them and I'd be nice and I'd pretend that I had no opinions, and I'd pretend that, I learned to fit in a little bit. I learned to fit in a little bit. I would be critical of my industry because obviously that was my wheelhouse, and I knew what we signed up for. I knew what we signed up for. I know what I signed up for with the social networks, and it wasn't this. It wasn't to be securitized for having an independent thought. It wasn't to be deplatformed for, considering science. Okay. It wasn't to have my movements tracked, my calls listened to, my every move inescapably. It's not like you can opt out. You can't just opt out. It's inescapable. Okay. I didn't sign up for that. Did you? Did you consent to that? At what point did we sign that contract that said, well, in exchange for writing into a box, here's a silly idea. Here's this website made by this cool guy. He's a programmer. He's just like you, Taya. He likes making shit. He made some cool shit. He's a web developer. He made this website. And basically, it allows you to text all of your friends. It's like a group text, but not group text. It's like a broadcast SMS. And I remember pitching Twitter in 2008 to my friend. Fuck it. My friend and former client Lisa Loeb. Okay. She's a big girl. She can handle it. I'm not doing anything wrong. I remember that. I remember the Skype call. I remember where I had to. I was developing the new website because I was doing her digital strategy and all that sort of stuff. A client of mine. I did strategy for a few different artists, but she was my main one at the time. I think this was what? This was really early. I think it was like 2007 or 8. It was quite early. No, wouldn't have been that early. Yeah, possibly 2008. Where we were doing the new website for the new album and everything. And one thing that I found that was a problem, because when the internet was new, it wasn't like it is now with a public figure or a celebrity. A lot of them were resistant to this stuff. Now, I was very, very early very early on, I saw the potential with music. Okay, so I was, massively into music industry, music career, various other things. I played guitar. My career started by, doing guitar tabs and fan sites, and I learned how to code by doing fan sites and all of that sort of stuff, and blogging and all that sort of stuff. And creating and running, and then eventually I just ended up running some fan forums, and they became clients, and then I started to design websites and all that sort of stuff, and went on from there. But I remember that conversation. There was a turning point there, because I still remember, because I feel like, if I'm honest with you, I feel like the part of the reason why I feel like I have to fix it is because I feel like I lied. And I was wrong. I don't like being wrong. You all know that. I don't like being wrong. But when Twitter was very, very new, okay, and we're doing the new website, one of my biggest struggles was when she was on tour, and when there was a whole bunch of great fans and fan community there. I was running it, keeping it running. I've got friends from that forum that I still have today. I have that are now fully fledged grown-ups, and every so often we stumble across each other and we're like, "How the fuck are you doing? How are you?" It's like there's people there that I was running the community, and they were kids when that was on, and now they're fully fledged adults. Okay, it's fucking brilliant. But one of the problems we had was getting Lisa to drop in, or getting them to drop in and write to the fans. So what we would do was, she'd every so often email something and I'd post it on her behalf, or she'd drop in and log in and, do something. Again, because the internet wasn't mobile, it was very much linked to the desktop computer. It was a hassle. It was, you dial in or all of those sorts of things. And if you're on tour, then your computer's at home. And it was very, people just really forget how much has changed since the iPhone. And so with Twitter, it was like, well, she had a BlackBerry and she was always sort of, emailing and bits and pieces with the BlackBerry. So I saw Twitter and I went, well, what we could do is set up the fan forum, and Twitter has this widget. And what you could do is you could get them to follow you on Twitter. And what you could do is, if you're at the airport or wherever you are, you could just share a snippet. And a big, big block, I think, for a lot of people early on was, well, why is anyone, again, this is the thing where it was like, it was very different because it sounds crazy now that I would be saying this, having this conversation. But she was like, well, what would I post? Why? No one's interested. I remember her saying, no one's interested in the minutiae of my day. And I said, well, you'd be wrong there. So initially I was selling this and I'm saying, do you know what? Things are changing. Things are changing where this was before iTunes. This is, well before iTunes really took off as well. This is like very early days. When I had my own label. Don't even. But I've always been wanting to do my own label, my own publishing, my own fucking tech that helps artists. That's always been my goal. So it's funny to be full circle. But what happened was that that I was trying to, I remember saying white noise and monkey farts. It's actually the name of one of the chapters that I'm planning if I ever get the book done. It's called White Noise and Monkey Farts. Because I remember saying that, it doesn't even need to be good. Okay. Because again, what I saw Ben Folds doing as a fan of Ben Folds, but I also saw him take this on early, which was that he started to release demos on iTunes. He didn't just release, not demos, but, like somewhere between demo and studio. He would release EPs and they would be sort of unfinished stuff or B-sides or that sort of stuff. And he saw that opportunity early on. And I was trying to get Lisa to get in on this and a few other people. And they were hesitant because they were sort of like, oh, it's got to be finished in the studio and it's got to be completely done and completely finished and all of that before I release it. And it's got to go on an album and then it's got to be through a label. And I said early on, I was like, they will listen if you can go direct. Okay, you can go direct, right? You can just put it up. You can sell it directly. There is no need. You don't need a label. You've got your fans. This was even before the true fans principle came out. I really, if I'd written it down, I'd probably have gotten credit for saying that sort of thing. This was how early it was. But I inherently understood this and I saw what was possible. And that was that you could put something out. You could put something out quickly. You could record it in a day. People would pay for it. Okay. It would be either a subscription or, if it was regular or one-offs. They download the MP3 because obviously that was within my realm of understanding at the time because we were dealing with fucking Winamp and shit like that. iTunes was pretty new. And, people, as a fans want to know the minutiae of your life. Okay. They do want those moments. They want that fourth wall. They want to break that fourth wall with you and they want to know everything they can about you. Don't we regret that fucking thing? I know I do. I know that I wish that I knew less about everybody. But back then, it was an idealistic view. Again, I had an idealistic view. There was a blind spot there, which was that this was probably something that I didn't hang out with people like attention seekers and extroverts. They weren't my crew. My crew is the INFPs and the INTJs and the introverts and the fucking deadheads. That was what I was used to. And when the internet was new, right, I did see your comment, Matthew. I'll just finish my thought. When the internet was new, okay, It was for fucking losers. It was for people like me who couldn't make friends. All the other people either didn't know how to get on the internet or they had lives. Remember, the internet, up until what, 2010, 70% of the internet was people arguing about who had a fucking life or not. Remember that? You got no life. No, you've got no life. You've got no life. Get a life. No, you've got no life. And then someone, usually me, would turn around and say, well, this is the Mariah Carey fan forum. I think we can agree that none of us have lives. Let's move on. And everyone's like, fair point. You make a compelling case and we move on. And we agree to disagree. And then it flares up every 3 months or so. Or you get some new person who asks for something that's already been settled and it starts over. Okay. And we, but eventually you have a community of people where there's a whole set of norms and like understandings and all that sort of stuff. But we didn't really understand that there were people out there who would abuse this. We didn't think, I didn't. Tell me if I was wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. If you are on the internet and a nerd and hanging out on fucking ICQ, uh-oh. Remember that? My dad fucking lost it over that. That was funny, that noise. Uh-oh. But 30281792. That was my ICQ number. I had an 8-digit ICQ number. That was my second one. I had a 6-digit ICQ number, but I lost it. Anyway, so some things you never forget. Can't find my keys. Don't know what day it is. Can't remember to turn my sound on every time I do a video, but fucking can remember my ICQ number, so might come in handy. So anyway, but hang on. So Matthew says, that expectation of ideological purity that my team, lefties, seem to want these days, with dire consequences for anyone trying to thwart progress. It's coming up again and again. And it's, honestly, I talked about this before as well. This actually is with the forums. When you've been around long enough, shit circles back. Okay? It circles back, and there comes a point where you can, and again, this is just, maybe it's just who I am as a person, where a lot of it links to how I process grief, and it's not unrelated to what I want to talk about. Well, I've been here an hour, I'm still talking about what I want to talk about. That's funny. Whatever. How would you like a Joe Rogan podcast or Bill Burr podcast that is way more shit, way less funny, way less focused? Watch 3 hours of me. It's good. But anyway, whatever. So no, but but the thing is, this stuff does circle back, and like it's not unlike the old days of the internet. Like I was saying, if you're part of a community and you're part of any kind of community, shit gets old fast. When you're new to a thing, you're new to it, and when you're a newly minted turf, okay, you're a newly minted person who said the wrong thing, or you're newly cancelled, and it's all new, and suddenly you realize that all those people, again, like I said, I got a head start. So when COVID hit, I'm having to be the fucking, punching bag for a lot of people because I've had a head start. And I go, well, it's my job to sit here and be comfort for people because I've been through this. We're seeing that with the guy from Mumford and Sons at the moment. We saw it with Ariel, what's her name? Whatever. Where people get newly cancelled or newly peaked, or they say something and they go, fuck, I had no idea what was going on, and everything that I thought was true is not true. And there's this whole world of people that I didn't know about, and I didn't know what was happening. Now that's what happened with feminism. And that comes back to the beginning where I talked a little bit about, I really severely underestimated how serious this was. I think I've said that before, which I just spoke out. I was on, again, that thing where I just implicitly trusted authority. I trusted that if I was a good person and I worked hard and I was smart and I studied hard and I learned all of the things and I learned everything I could and was curious and, did my best as a parent and tried hard and was honest and did everything in good faith and answered Twitter's text box that asked me what what I was up to. And Facebook, when they said, "What are you up to today?" and I told them, and they said, "Well, do you want to connect with your friends? This seems like a good way to connect. Do you want to do that?" And I said, "Yeah, it does seem convenient. I might draw dicks and balls on their graffiti wall and we will bond. That's a cool feature. I will use it relentlessly." But what I did was I filled in the box. I answered the question. I offered in good faith. I answered their fucking question. What are you up to? What's going on? I talked about motherhood. Everyone was talking about motherhood. I was talking about the struggles of being a working mum. I was talking about my marriage and my friends and, my day-to-day struggles. And I'm an externalizer. I like to talk about things. I like to talk things out. I like to have ideas. I'm curious what other people are thinking. I like that other people where I can just tag something and I go, "How about this thought?" And I go, "Whoop," and no one replies because they're too afraid. But in the old days, they used to reply and we used to have some really interesting conversations. When my grandma's cancer kicked in and grandma had cancer, I turned to my blog and I wrote, it was my reflex. I wrote on Facebook. Facebook asked me how I was doing. And I wasn't doing well. Twitter asked me how I was doing and what I was up to. And I wasn't doing that great. So I answered the question. Twitter asked me what I was thinking. And I was thinking of a joke. It wasn't a good joke because I'm not, they're not all winners. But I just answered the question. And then when grandma got sick and I wrote on my blog, I had 200 comments of people who've gone through the same thing, who were talking about how hard it was and were connecting over stuff. And that was great. And I felt less alone for about 10 minutes, Then on Facebook, when I went through my divorce and was trying to navigate that, Facebook asked me how I was doing. I wasn't doing so good. I was mad. I was hurt. And I said stuff. Facebook asked me how I was doing, and Twitter asked me how I was doing, and my blog asked how I was doing. They just had text boxes. We were just filling stuff out. They asked us how we were doing. And then my daughter got mad at me for blogging about her when she was young. And that's a fair cop. I didn't think about it. We didn't think about it. I wanted to be Heather Armstrong. Deuce was cool. Mummy blogging was cool. Unless you're Mia Friedman and then you're a fuckwit. But mummy blogging was cool for a period of time. And then it turned into a business and became advertisers and fucking baby white warmers and product and paid content before my eyes. And I just sat there just answering the question and never taking any money. I was just Taya online. And then Facebook, then, life happened. I've been on Facebook since 2007. How long is that now? That's 14 years, is it? Yeah. No. Yeah, something like that. 14 years of my life has unfolded on Facebook. My baby, when he was premature, I shared it on Facebook. All the ups and downs of parenting, I shared. And then, that's at least part of the reason why my daughter hates me now. Because my attempts to be funny and witty and write funny things, it became a thing between us. I mean, there's a number of things, but that's, it's always there's a number of things. Divorce just does things. It becomes complicated. Like I'm just saying, all I did was answer the question in good faith. And that's where I trusted, that thing where we blindly trusted them. We thought that they were actually connecting us, not gradually driving us apart. Right? And if I had my time again, I would do things very differently. But even after, 10 years of just answering the question, being honest, how was your day? What are you up to? How's things? When I nearly died, actually, 2007, I was in hospital for a month. I was in a coma for a week. And my ex-husband logged into my blog and wrote every day, updating the blogging community, because that was when, it was networks of blogs and stuff. And blogging community, I had quite a big following. I didn't realize how much of a following at the time, but I had quite a big following. And he was going in there and updating them every day. And he coped by filling in that box. And not one person in tech, well, maybe they did. Maybe there's people like me around the world who for some reason or another have not succeeded in tech for this very reason. But none of us stopped to think where that box led. We're answering that question. What are you up to? Tell us about your day. Okay, then I'm going to write in the box. Just going to write in the box. Someone's listening to me. I'm going to tell you about my day. I'm going to share my day because then I will feel just slightly less isolated and slightly less alone. And then all of a sudden, that box, everything that you've said in that box, every question you've answered, every conversation you've had, every time you've used your GPS is now in a cloud somewhere waiting for you to be honest again in the wrong way. And all I've ever done is answer the question, what are you up to? You see what I'm saying? It's all we've ever done. We did nothing wrong. Nobody has done anything wrong because those platforms have been designed to prompt you to fill out that box and answer that question. Basically like a telemarketer, really. It's ringing you and asking you how your day was. And you're like, well, thanks for asking. That's cool. Can't afford a psychiatrist, can't afford a psychologist, can't afford mental health care. I'm a mum and I'm alone and I'm in a bad marriage. Thanks for asking. I'm glad you asked. My friend's in the box. Help me. And then all of a sudden, at some point, I was reading some articles. I was reading on Jezebel in the comments section, and I saw something unusual, which was a trans woman in the comments pulling rank on biological women on feminism. And I hadn't seen that. Seen it a couple of times, but they started to do it a lot. And then I saw a rad femme turn around after a couple of weeks of watching this one particular activist fucking dominate the conversation one time too many. Turn around and say, fuck you. You fucking, and I just went, you're a man, fuck you, and I went, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? And I defended that person and got in it. And then I got called a TERF. And then I clicked on to Feminist Current and I saw the other side of the argument. I thought, again, because I trust authority, don't forget, you work hard, the smartest people win, good people win. You win with argument. I studied political science. I was told my whole fucking career that it's about the pitch, the ideas. I'm in the business of changing hearts and minds. I persuade people. And if you persuade people, then fair cop, you win. It's fair. It's a fair system. You can target people with ads. I mean, that's not ideal, but if you act like me and you're ethical, then you're just giving people what they want, what they're demanding. And what they're looking for it, and it's convenient and it's good. It's a frictionless experience. It's good for them. We're giving them something that's good for them. They're just filling in the box. because someone asked how their day was. Someone asked how their day was. So that bait and switch happened. And you landed on Feminist Current. And then I think that was what I was reading quietly for a year, probably 2 years before I even uttered a word. I was quietly, I wanted to, yeah, it was just like, okay. This was way before Megan got banned from Twitter. This was like, I was reading Feminist Current from 2016. Someone got called a TERF, and I was like, what the fuck is a TERF? Then I got called a TERF, and then I landed on Feminist Current, and I was like, okay, all right, whiplash, Jezebel, okay, what the fuck is going on with this thing? And then suddenly you see all this stuff, like, the gender critical subreddit, Handmaid's Tale subreddit, all that sort of stuff, the funny stories, and it's quite the ride. And to go back to what Matthew said about this, right? About the expectation of ideological purity, right? And but it's coming up again and again, and it's tiring. It is tiring. Sorry, I reread it, and it's probably not what you meant to say. Sorry, I get what you mean. I think we're just a bit over it. Yeah, I think everyone's over it. But I'll get to that. I know I wandered off, but I just kind of got into an introspective mood. But at no point, because I always look. The thing is, my relationship with social media was always consensual. It was never. I always used it very consciously, very strategically. I always, as much as I say, I just filled in the box. I'm universalizing that experience, but I'm also a digital strategist, also a marketer. I knew what I was doing. I know how to get traction, and I know how to say the right things, and all of that. I know what works. Okay, I know how to go viral. I've gone viral. I know what to do. But at no point did I ever think that I would be on the wrong side of things. That was the thing that I found hard. It's the thing I'm finding even harder, like now in the last 18 months, that I'm on the outer of the thing. I was always on the outer of it because I've always been sort of, rebellious and rebel light up until recently. And even then, I'm still not all that rebellious. I'll still conform and, and still behave myself in a meeting. But what happened was that I spent 10 years of my career selling a thing, saying that this is a great tool. We're giving people what they want. We're making it easier for them. We're just helping people connect. We're just asking them about their day. And I just went about my job. So I'd write stuff, I'd say stuff, tweet stuff, I'd have fun. We'd laugh. There'd be an understanding that, I'm just having a bit of fun with a tweet storm, and it's not really me because people know me, and my community and my crew know who I am and know that I'm a good person. And the extroverts moved in and made it theirs. And the corporations moved in and let the extroverts fucking take over and bully us into submission and change the deal. And that's where it's just very strange to me that people are not more, I don't know. I'm coming at this from a place of, I think I'm reflecting, because someone said something like, I think it was a week ago, about anonymity. I think it was that Critter account. Last, I can't say it. You know the one, the doctor. And she's like, well, I'm anonymous, and why I'm anonymous. And I was asked to speak, and here's why I don't. And I never really had that chance. Because when I think about it, I had a transaction and an understanding with the internet. I had an understanding. And this is where I think a lot of the early adopters of the internet really, I think we need to start saying more and speaking more about this bait, this lie. I don't believe that I have a fucking contract with Twitter. And I think that it's unconscionable, and I think that it will be challenged. But what was I can't remember what I was gonna say. Oh, yeah. I basically what I was always just doing what I always did. So, participating in the conversation, being honest, talking about it. And, yeah, I mean, we went through this in 2001 to some degree. Like, the Americans were being fucking Americans, dickhead Americans. They lost their fucking head, started going on about freedom fries and fucking all that dumb shit. But they largely just, this was on Usenet at the time. You just blocked everyone with an AOL.com address on Usenet. It was peaceful. But there was also an understanding. There was an understanding that it was the internet and it was the Wild West and that it was free. And the people who wanted to cancel us and the people who wanted to censor the internet were the bad guys. They weren't the good guys. And this is the thing. So I'll show you after. I don't know whether I want to do that. I've kind of gone into a more introspective thing. But what I naively thought at the time in 2017 was, well, surely I could just tell people what's going on. Like, I've built up enough credibility and people know that I know the internet. Like, people know that if there's one thing that I know, they know I know my shit. They might not like, oh, I've always said, I don't give a fuck if you like me. But even people who don't like me respect me and what I know in the digital industry. Okay. And the people that know me respect me. Think I'm a dickhead, and that's fine. I don't care about that. But I'm good at what I do. And I thought naively, again, I don't know whether this is just a blind faith or whether we can get back there, whether it is true, still was true, and we're just having to work through it. But I thought, shit, my friends need to hear about this because I didn't know about this, which means that everyone doesn't know about this unfairness that's going on, what's happening to women, and what's being said, like the fucking argument that's going on right now. That not only are for, like trans women, fair enough, up until, recently it was just, well, okay, we coexist. We understand and empathize with the plight of trans women, traditional transsexual women, and, it can't be easy transitioning. That's going to be like an awkward few years. Known some people who transitioned, known people, it's not easy. I also know quite a few child abusers who transitioned when they got caught. I'm just saying. I also have that because remember I was a child protection worker, so I also can smell that bullshit as well. So that was always a thing. Like my grandma's neighbor got done for child porn because I remember because he used to let me play with his computer. Yes, his computer, not his dick. But he got done for child porn. And quite egregious. And it turns out that he was a pedophile. Shit. And he decided that he came out as trans, got a lesser sentence, and found, like it seems to be a thing that they know. Okay, in the community. This is truth. It's not saying all trans are. I'm saying that trans is used by predators as a fucking tool. Okay. I also, like my grandmother's friend, her son. Right, he only liked young boys, so he didn't get to me. But he was found and he hung himself because he got caught like diddling all these boys. I've been around my fair share of these things. Okay. I also, was, molested myself repeatedly and have been a target myself. I have a good predator gene. I've also been around family members who are fucking batshit Christians and who speak in speaking tongues and fucking all that stuff. I know the glaze, the born again glaze. When you grow up with a certain family, you just, a portion of them become born again, a portion of them become Jehovah's Witness. You become sensitive to these things. And I started to just gather all that information up, and I thought, well, okay, well, I've got to say something about this. So I said something, and I came under attack. And I tried to raise it because my daughter was showing an interest in feminism as well at the time. And I tried to raise it with her and she shut me down. Actually, my first interaction was when a colleague's kid came out as they, and it was a big deal, and I didn't understand it. And I basically said to her, because she struck me as somebody who was all otherwise fucking across like feminism and stuff. She was a cool lady. I like her a lot, respect her immensely. And then I got stink eye when I said, okay, so how does your daughter being they it was a genuine question because I wasn't across it at the time. I said, well, you know, how does your how do you reconcile that with feminism? And I didn't even know that. Obviously, that was a fucking pretty turfy thing to say. I had no idea. I don't know. I didn't know. I just said it because I'm Taya and I was trying to show an interest and I was curious. And I was like, oh, you strike me as a feminist. How do those two things, like, to sort of reject womanhood in that way? And she fucking, okay, got the stink eye for 3 days. And I went, okay, I didn't know what I did. All right then. Weird. Put it down to one person. You put it down to one person. Just like you put a lot of this stuff down to it being like the comment section come to life. It's not really, I always thought it was crazy people because I trusted authority. I trusted it. Because I just thought, well, merit. If you work hard and you don't hurt anybody and you obey the law and you try hard and you try your best and you'll be okay. And people have your back. And it turns out that was not the case. And then just for the last 5 years, we've been going through that piece by piece. Some people in more, much more devastating circumstances. I've obviously had more of a sort of thinking time than most. A lot of people are just surviving. But, for me, I literally just thought, well, I've got an opinion on this thing. Better fucking share it. And I lost friends. I lost my child. I mean, again, it's not over that one issue. There's a number of things, okay? But and since then, I've been trying to claw my way back. And because again, that thing about anonymity or real name or, that sort of stuff is like, well, I never really had a choice in that because I naively thought that I would just use my name and I'd be fine. It wasn't even something. I just thought, well, this is an injustice. This is unfair. This is before Megan Murphy got cancelled, by the way. Or, all that stuff. I saw it happening, but I didn't know that it was actually fucking. I honestly thought that when Jessica Yaniv hit the mainstream news, that would be over for people. And I think it is. It's slowly but surely it gets more and more ridiculous. That everybody knows that the vast majority of gender critical feminists are just bog standard feminists who disagree and all of that stuff. But the bait and switch that I saw with tech is that, in 2008, it was Stephen Fielding, family first, right-wing evangelical Christians, batshit fucking crazy Christians wanting to censor the internet for the children, wanting to criminalize, right? Again, studied cyber law as part of my digital policy is in my fucking veins. I've watched this stuff unfold. I remember when my university lecturer is one of the most famous defamation cases where there was actually no law that existed for the internet. And so they were able to harass him relentlessly without consequences because the law hadn't caught up yet, right, with the internet. So there's always been that tension between sort of censorship and the law and people's ability to have access. And then we've got a government who used all of that data that we gave them. Again, we did the right thing. You be nice. You fill out the form. You just do your taxes and you go to the doctor and get your dental and you whatever. You just do the right thing and try to be honest and do the right thing and be nice to people. Try to just pay your bills. Next minute, you get a fucking automated debt from the government for thousands of dollars that they're not answering the phone for hours and hours and hours, and you give up. If you give up, but they keep demanding payment, and they then refer you to a debt collector who harasses you into making a payment plan. They also make it so that Centrelink is the social security department in Australia, welfare department, like basically, the person that, gives all of the money. And so you've got Centrelink and the Australian Tax Office, and they work hand in hand. With all the data sharing between the ATO and Centrelink, they just were generating automatic debts for people with no ability to appeal it. And here's the kicker. In 2017, I believe, 2018, they passed policy, not legislation, they passed policy that any Centrelink debts can no longer be statute barred after 6 years. So if you've got an unjust debt and you ignore it, and you don't pay it, and you don't say you owe it, and you don't make a payment, okay, 6 years, that debt goes away. That's a statute barred debt. Okay. Can't do that now. It's a debt that follows you forever. Can't go bankrupt. Tax office debt and Centrelink debt are immune from bankruptcy. That wasn't the deal either. That government has now passed law where basically they're going to censor the internet and securitize everybody who says bad things that the government doesn't like. This is the stuff that's been bothering me. What the fuck? I'm not going to say ivermectin any more than once, just to say it. But look it up. YouTube said, okay, this is the thing where I'm having trouble coming back from. So it started with the houses. Okay, it's been going for a while. Fucking being called a TERF, that was fucking an unraveling and a half. Okay. But that can unravel you to the right, but the right's a cul-de-sac. As you know, Lindsay's a whatever. They're not bright, okay? The IDW, whatever. But the right is largely a cul-de-sac, as I've said before. So you go through that. You go through the culture wars. We then sit there and see Richard Branson. I'm going to use Richard Branson just as an example because it's just the most glaring and fucking disgusting example other than, we've got Bezos and, whatever. But people saw what I saw. I talked about it on video. Richard Branson, from his island, okay, asked Virgin employees to take 8 weeks unpaid leave whilst there was a global pandemic on and the government was worried that the hospitals would be overrun, that they would have to support everybody, that they would have to give everyone payouts, that they had to prioritise. Richard Branson, from his private island, okay, asked his employees to take 8 weeks unpaid leave and asked the UK and Australian government for handouts because he entered the market aggressively and was selling things at a loss because that's his strategy. Okay. Now, Centrelink, I think we should put Centrelink on the case with Richard Branson because turns out I haven't claimed any benefits in 10 years, but I've got a $9,000 Centrelink debt for some reason. They're coming after me. It's pretty hard to fucking reconcile that, isn't it? But we saw it happen. We saw it with our own eyes. What happened? We saw Jeff Bezos get richer. We saw these people get richer. We saw All of these things we saw. Like, regardless of what you say about, whatever with Trump, he was a fucking idiot. He was sloppy, but occasionally he was trying to say things that, if you took the time and you were a bit charitable, you understood what he was trying to say, even if he was he was delivering it in a fuckwit package. Hydrochloroquine, for example. Okay, it came out wrong. All right, but YouTube, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of these tech companies conspired to suppress a treatment, which at the time they said was not effective, but it was freely available, cheap, anti-malarial drug, right? And then everyone's like, nope, there's no science. Trust the science. And I went, okay, I'll trust the science. I'll trust those in power. They must be there for a reason because I'm not in charge. If I knew better, then I'd be in charge, wouldn't I? If I knew better, then I'd be rich. If I knew better, then I'd be successful. If I knew better, if I was evil, then I just find it bizarre when you go on LinkedIn and you see this and you know all of these things and you gather all of this data. Because I gather my own fucking data, right? Which is this, which is how you can sit and watch billionaires do that to the working class. You can see it come out day after day after day, how Amazon treat their workers. Day after day, how Facebook treat their workers. Deplatforming of women who assert their boundaries. Even if I completely and utterly disagreed with them, I would disagree. I don't believe in deplatforming anybody. I think all ideas have a space, so long as you're not fucking, I think communities, again, a career running communities, I know that these things tend to resolve themselves if you let them. Okay. They tend to, like, if you just talk it out, you work it out. That's the scientific method as well. You talk it out. You test it. You keep testing. You keep talking. If you don't know, you find out. You talk about it. The humanities come in and go, hey, guys, you probably shouldn't do that. Every so often. And science goes, yeah, probably good idea. And then sometimes they're negligent and they fuck up. And then you go, oh, yeah, probably wasn't wise, guys. You should probably learn from your mistakes. That's how I thought it worked anyway. And then suddenly it's coming out that if we can't buy a house, we pay our rent and we look after our houses and we love houses our own. We had a big expensive house when I had the company, when I had the previous business, downgraded because I wanted to be freer to speak my mind and do more things and try different things and figure out what I wanted to be and recover from illness. Downgraded and thought, well, we'll just downgrade and save for a deposit for a house. Year later, we're kicked out of that house and have to empty our savings into getting a new rental that's smaller, even smaller and shittier than the house we were in. And no chance of ever buying a house, ever, unless things change. So we did all the right things. We should have just downgraded. We did. We should save. We did. We should just cut down on things. We do. Where's my house? Where's my mortgage? Where's my salary? Where's my business? I'm one of the greatest brains in my fucking industry. No one's knocking my door down because I made the mistake of speaking up about things under my real name. That said, I'm out now. I may as well just, the thing is, once you've done it, you're done for good. So you may as well just be truthful. That's what you're seeing, is me just being honest and saying, well, I didn't choose this. The thug life chose me. And, if this is how it's going to be, I'm going to have to push through. I've tried to warn you. I've written several things warning about where this leads. When they banned QAnon, I warned. When I worried about the threat of authoritarianism in the left. Well, I mean, let's get away from the political spectrum, left versus right. That's ultimately meaningless. But if you want to know, traditionally, the definition of left versus right, and this is why maybe we should get to my hypothesis a little bit. The reason why wokeism, okay, and I hate that term, but everyone uses it, the gentrified left, okay, I hate using those things, but unfortunately, I have to go with the vernacular that is there. The reason why these people, okay, are by definition right wing is that, first of all, no left wing, like real true left wing socialist would weaponize employment against the worker. That's just, they wouldn't do that. Okay, that their lack of working class solidarity shows right there. Second of all, if you know the history of the political spectrum, so to speak, it was largely okay. So after the French Revolution, it was the people who wanted change, very loose, very loose coalition. That's why putting all these people into two fucking categories is meaningless anyway. But broadly speaking, they were the revolutionaries, people who wanted change, and then you had the aristocracy and kings and establishment. Okay, largely politically speaking, left wing politics is for progressive, but not in the sense that it means change for the sake of change. It just means that they, it opposes elite. It opposes the elites. It opposes the bourgeois. Okay. So this is where things have shifted on their axis, because by definition, okay, the right wing is establishment, aristocracy, elites. Okay, management class, all of those things, they're traditionally right wing. It doesn't matter what it's not about the ideas. It's about, there's a number of different definitions, but that's one of them. Okay. The other one is that they are using United States neoliberal politics as a weapon. You cannot be, it's obvious, I mean, just look at all the rainbow logos. Yeah, that's not left wing. You don't see anyone putting fucking Free Assange on their fucking corporate logos, do you? Don't be naive, okay? This is obviously a weapon, okay? It's come out of the most right-wing country in the world, which is America, and the history of it has been that postmodernism as a philosophy, they saw an opportunity. Now, don't forget, America have changed a lot of the words too. Like if you look at your political compass, your four-way political compass, you'll see that Marxism is only mentioned really in the authority in left authoritarianism, and it's tied to Leninism and Stalinism. It's not even a genuine representation of what Marx. They've fused Marx with Stalin very successfully over the years through a combination of strategies, like with postmodernism and as a movement through universities and all that sort of stuff. McCarthyism, blah, 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 blah. Talked about this before. So they are by definition right wing, okay, in terms of the economics. They're not left wing in terms of this, because they're not about social democracy. They're not about workers' rights. They're not even about healthcare. Democrats are not even about healthcare. They still believe in user pays fucking healthcare. Yeah, okay. Like all those lefties do. Okay. What they've done is they've basically stripped all of the cultural bullshit that was never really left wing anyway. Okay, so they've taken our street cred and just turned it into fascism. Now, it's fascism. Okay, so wokeism is right wing by definition. Okay, because they're on they're on the side of the establishment. They support the establishment, regardless of what they say. They support the establishment. Okay, and the real establishment is Wall Street and Hollywood and American dominance in culture, American, good old Uncle Sam. They're not anti-establishment in any way, shape, or form. Okay. That's right wing because they adhere that ultimately, regardless of all the colors of the rainbow and variations of the flag and fucking scratch and sniff stickers that they fucking make on a daily basis that smells of their own farts. Okay. Ultimately, it's all just talk, and they adhere to the gender binary. Okay. The stereotypes around gender and sex. The word gender, the history of that comes from conservatism in the United States, because they were too squeamish The Christians were too fucking squeamish to write the word sex on forms. The conservative movement, ultimately. Okay? It wouldn't surprise me if at least 80% of these fucking fucks were squeamish about the word sex because they're still just squeamish about the word sex because they're fucking Puritans. They're not the left. They also, again, I won't go into sort of, austerity economics and neoliberalism and all that, and anti-communism. So they're anti-communist. Okay. Now, if you look at the definitions of fascism, so there's lots of different ones, but there's broad categories, right? Sorry, just had it pop up. Where are we? So there's some broad definitions and broad criteria for fascism, but it's pretty fucking. Let's just have a look here, shall we? So like the left-right dichotomy is like meaning, like, again, even if you look at something like horseshoe theory, that requires you to buy into the premise of authoritarian. It's a piece of IP that is heavily criticized because it is basically, it's come out of the United States and it's been manufactured to create a false equivalency between communism and fascism, which doesn't exist. They're not the same thing. Okay. Now, whether or not the Chinese government is a truly communist government and not totalitarian, that remains to be seen because we live in Australia. We don't know. We're so subjected to propaganda. I think I just have to park that one. Nobody knows for sure. If I ever visit China, I'll let you know. Okay. But let's just know that we're up against a pretty powerful fucking war machine that's very good at hearts and minds, so to speak. So, but okay, so by every criteria of fascism, think about it. Okay. If you know, first of all, the history of fascism. Fascism presented itself, you'll laugh at this, as like a compromise between socialism and capitalism, the third way. It's pretty funny, isn't it? Given that third way was actually the platform of the people who wokeism is the bastard child of. Hillary Clinton, Tony Blair, right? It was basically, okay, so how can we get neoliberal economics, and all of these things to be popular while appearing left? It's a compromise position. There was a compromise and it was called Keynesian economics, but that wasn't enough. They needed a new thing called the third way. Now, I remember like the third way in Australia, Mark Latham was pushing that one, and a lot of it was about, okay, well, you've got the social contract, right? Which is that in exchange for the government running shit, like, we trust you and we give that to you. We gift you that power if you look after us and, keep things peaceful and, fund the police and fund services. And, that's kind of the deal. Okay. But what they needed was, well, neolibs don't want that. What they need to do is just sell everything, privatize it, gut it, and then blame fucking socialism for it not working, right? That's the neoliberal way. So what do? We say, well, we don't, okay, so we really are bought by fucking the powerful. We're bought by corporate interests, but we need to pretend that we're not. So what we'll do is we'll have a compromise position. And what we'll do is we'll say that if you want to get a welfare check, or you want healthcare, or you want a handout, there's that word, a handout from the government, you got to do something. That's called reciprocity. If you remember that. You don't get stuff just for being a citizen who hands over their birthrights and taxes. You've got to do extra fucking admin and go through extra hoops in order to fucking eat if you're on your way down. You got to do something for that. No such thing as a free lunch. That famous left-wing view. So they started with the third way. Gradual erosion of healthcare rights, privatisation, offering the private option for healthcare, which always existed, but now it's the default. We pay like a lot of money for me to be sick. Great. And it's that gradual erosion. Now, the thing that people don't know is that fascism, I believe, fascism doesn't creep necessarily the way people think it does. I believe that fascism creeps from the center, okay? And I believe that because it presents itself as a compromise, people compromise too much, and it creeps. It's just, again, okay, sorry. My brain faded there for a second. Let me just gather my thoughts. Have a sip of coffee. Fascism is not, this is another thing when you're thinking about political spectrum. It's not like you suddenly go from Republican Party, right wing, to fascism. It doesn't see the way that it's almost like it's not linear. Okay. The way that this stuff moves is not linear. It's complex. This is why the left-right paradigm is a problem, because people have this idea that if you are sort of saying some things over here, that you're left, and that you believe some things that are left and some things that are right, that it averages out in the middle. It's not like that. Centrism, that's why I have a problem with centrism, because centrism is how fascism happens, because fascism creeps in compromise of values, because socialism is not it's an alternative to capitalism, but it still has markets, it still has trade, it still has stuff to do. You still have goods and services, you still have relationships, you still have, that sort of stuff. It's just a different way of looking at it. It's not like there's no economy versus an economy and you compromise in the middle. If I hear one more person say free shit for socialism, they can go fuck themselves. It's like, no, they get rid of the dead weight. That's what socialism is, just, and it's a fairer distribution of wealth for work. That's all it is. It's not really that fucking hard. Okay. It's not like when you talk about revolution and violence, it doesn't mean that the market ceases to exist. It just means that in order to get fairness, sometimes you got to lose a few heads if you don't fucking listen. Bezos. Anyway, I'm just saying. But fascism creeps from the center, and fascism creeps from compromise, and that's what I'm saying. That's how it started. If you know your history, you know what I mean. It's always presented itself as a compromise. Fascism also says what it isn't a lot. It also says that it is something that it is not. National Socialists, okay, good example, okay. I'm just saying, like, you can't just say they're the left and that they're communists just because they say that they're the left. It's just, by all markers, if you're a political scientist and you know your terminology and your history, it doesn't fit. Okay, so remember, even if you believe in left versus right, you've got the authoritarian and libertarian axis. Again, it's only a four-way model. Still, there's people that have fucking hundreds and hundreds of different axes. It's much like personality. It's the same sort of thing. There's a lot of there's 6,000 questions underneath. Okay, it's not like you say yes to this, yes to feminism, and no to fucking lynchings, and you average out at the center. Politics doesn't work like that. Okay. What it does is that it's always been at matrix. Everyone by default is what centrists think is centrism, which means that you just don't believe in a party system, because politics are about values, not about tribe, and that's so there's separate things. Anyway, waffling. But so fascism. Look up a word. Okay. Statolatry. I find it hard to say. Idolatry. Statolatry. Okay. Look at what we've seen in the last year. Statolatry. Worship of the state. Worship of politicians. Okay. Is generally populist in nature, which is fucking, of course it is. Populism. It tries to appeal to people's base emotions. That's the very definition of it. Okay. It has it is generally misogynistic. Fascism is generally misogynistic and homophobic. Okay. They might say that it's not, but it's proving itself to be true. It's gotten smarter. Okay. Criteria of fascism. What else have we got? We've got anti-communism is a factor in fascism. Okay, again, they can say they're not anti-communist, but the way that they behave with Marxists and feminists and radfems and those who are actually communists and those who actually talk about class, the mask slips on them on wokeism the second that you start to say um, anything that involves class analysis, and they start saying, well, working class is right wing. Shows they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And also, working class is a dog whistle for the alt-right. No, it's not. People who care about the working class are left wing. Okay? By definition. Okay? This is definitions. Also, you believe in laissez-faire economics. Okay? So basically, fascism takes managed economy, okay, and authoritarianism with the socialism for the powerful. So, the welfare. So basically, what they would do is use the welfare state as a weapon. So you have got a managed economy to the point where there's control, okay, and then obviously you use that to punish people who don't obey. Right, that's one thing. Surveillance. All that stuff. Okay. Let me have a look. Hang on. Let me just get me. Where's my points? I was just riffing. Okay. So again, a lot of these things, remember, the definition of fascism is contested as well. There's lots of different types. This is a new version of fascism. I'm saying it meets all the criteria. Okay. Even if you just look at sort of basic fucking definitions, anyone who says they're the far left is just buying that American horseshoe narrative, and it's not true. The Democrats are not far left. Okay. This is fascistic. All right. So, okay. Yeah. So Sim said, you'll own nothing and like it, your government. Yeah. That's fascism. Okay. It's not communism. Okay. Because in communism, it's not about that. It's not. See, Marx's critique of private property is very misunderstood. It's not saying that nobody should have private property. It's the accumulation of it and the exploitation and at the expense of everything else. And this idea that it's like that where he was critiquing it in terms of public goods being private property, and that things like railroads and public goods and things that are public utilities becoming considered private. There's not, you can't, he's not saying you can't have a fucking house or have shares. It means you don't understand what his critique was about. His critique was more about the fact that, private property above all else, and also the exploit. There's also several volumes of Capital, not just one, okay, and also Communist Manifestos. You got to read these things in context. But, his critique of that was more about the fact that, people who do that, there's an inverse relationship between people who do the most valuable work, nurses, teachers, people on the ground, and being exploited. Look at Amazon. Fucking, Marx would have a field day critiquing that fucking business. Exactly that. Marx just pointed out that Bezos might be a bit of a problem. That's all he said. Okay. It was the accumulation of this stuff. We've got to have a balanced view. And also, remember, you've got to read Marx in context, which is that it was in the early days of the Industrial Revolution. So you can't necessarily apply Marxist critique because it was much. Remember, our worlds were smaller. Our communities were smaller. Businesses were not even close to the size that they are now. He hadn't even lived to see this. Like, he hadn't even lived to see the 20th century happen. Okay. So I'm just saying, right? So you've got to take it in context, which was that he's not saying the governments were smaller, communities were smaller, there was more localized government. His critique of that was has to be taken in that context. Now, so you've got the other. What's the other thing with fascism? So it's misogynistic, statolatory. Hang on, let me get the fucking thing up. Hang on. Where are we? So let me get a list. Hang on. I was looking at the wrong freaking thing. Okay, so the core things. So I think that what we need to do is start saying fascist with, like, it really fucking irritates me when everyone says, this is why they stripped a lot of the words of the meaning on purpose. This is why, you remember how I was like talking about it being looking like a cult and like Scientology and, and thought reform. And it's like, this is by design. It has to be designed because there's thought reform working. It's total blah, blah, blah. Thought reform. Totalitarianism uses thought reform. I've talked about that before. But it wasn't a cult, it's totalitarianism and fascism coming to light. And it is by design. And as we know, so actually it was pretty funny. I was telling you about my plumber. We're talking and we were talking about how the houses are being bought up. And he just happened to say, oh, yeah, the Great Reset. And this woman was walking past. She goes, did you talk about the Great Reset? Oh my God. And then she came over and and I made friends with her and stuff. And we're talking about this is people are talking about it. It's in our consciousness. Okay. So, but anyway, where are we? So, it's fucking too much. I meant to look this up. Thought I could wing it, but I can't. Oh, there we go. So you got the corporatist economic system. Okay. Also, us and them, imperialism. America is like the fact that these wokes can fucking sit there and talk about colonization in the UK. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Sargon, whatever, of what's his name, Carl Benjamin. But the one thing that does make me laugh is when he claims that white people are indigenous to the UK, and it fucking breaks their brains. That does make me laugh. But that's that imperialism. Okay, if you disagree, like in Australia particularly, we feel that more than anything is that like it's not a coincidence that we're called the 51st state. Like our sense of national identity is slipping and slipping and slipping very, very fast because, all of our media is owned by United States companies, and most of our companies are owned by fucking, foreign entities now. And again, that's not nationalism in the sense that it's like some nationalism is good and okay if you believe in like, that or people organizing in a state or a nation is necessary for a functioning fucking world and democracy, then that's fine. But if obviously once you get to sort of, imperialist nationalism and full on fucking, statolatry is the word that you're looking for, then that's a problem, right? So, and what they often do, fascists, is they pit themselves against another, which is, us and them. Fucking good old Uncle Sam is good at that. Look at that's why with the China thing, it's just like, oh, I don't know. It's okay to not know things, by the way. They're also generally anti-science, okay? Generally getting people to deny their eyes and ears. They love the military. They worship military, police, obsessed with fucking militarization, and that includes paramilitaries. Okay, now I would argue that, Antifa and places like that are largely organized as paramilitaries. The United States actually have it in their fucking constitution. Definition of fascism. Okay, they literally say, let all these truths remain self-evident. Nah, I think there's doesn't that sound a lot like no debate to you? Just saying. Okay. I'm just saying, like, you look at your definitions. Okay. I'm fading. I'm running out of, but fascism can have, nationalism with or without expansionism. The United States is imperialist. They're absolutely expansionist. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Okay. Totalitarian thought. That's the definition. Fucking cancelling anybody, destroying people's lives, harassing people, murdering people they disagree with. Okay. Right. They use policies of indoctrination and, propaganda, like black propaganda. Right. What this wokeism is it's called black propaganda. The difference between grey propaganda and black propaganda is that black propaganda pretends to be its opposition in order to persuade and nudge people. That's CIA shit. Right. It's black propaganda. Okay. And then you've got, so they oppose a international free market, which, I mean, if you've been following the hedge fund shit and Wall Street bets and GameStop and the fact that they're cracking down on fucking retail investors, again, the environment is ripe for this sort of thing. Okay. Again, I'm not saying they're there. I'm just saying that a lot of people have given me shit for saying that wokes aren't left wing, but they're not by any definition. They come from the United States. They come from the United States elite. They come from fucking, the top 10% of the 1% in America. Okay. They, regardless of their fucking diversity, that's the bit they've borrowed. Okay. They've borrowed that bit. But if you look at their class, they all come from the universities where they've taught postmodern theory and postmodern ideology and gender studies, which is an American term, which they used because they were too fucking Christian and squeamish about sex and bodies to even say the word sex. So, the mask, again, and it also weaponizes someone's livelihood and working class status against them by the state. They actually are the world's HR department, okay, and the middle managers, okay. It's fucking, you can't get more bourgeois than fucking the corporate police known as human resources. What socialist calls people human resources? Okay, what's a more gaslighty fascist term, third way compromise, than a human resource? Soylent fucking Green is people. Fuck me. Soylent Green is human resources. Fuck me. See what I mean? Okay. And I'm sure that everyone's going to wave their dicks around and go, what James Lindsay said. Yeah, James Lindsay's fallen for fascism. James Lindsay is what you would call controlled opposition. Okay. Now, age and gender roles. Fascism emphasizes, here we go, emphasizes youth. Gets to the youth. Okay. That's the thing that's missing. So what? Youth. Karen, boomer. Okay. Demonizes the elderly. It demonizes maturity. It demonizes the intelligent, demonizes intellectuals. Worships youth. It's misogynistic. Okay. By very definition, this movement is fascist. Okay. Fascistic is probably the more correct word. It meets the, okay, I don't want to sit there because the problem is that they get this fucking Godwin's law because everyone's made fucking all this meaningless. An actual political scientist sits in front of you and says, hey, warning everybody, look at this criteria. These guys are fascists. And if you don't fucking nip this in the bud pretty fast, it's going to get bad for you. Having been someone who spotted this early, and I've watched it get worse and worse and worse, and I have watched this get more and more sinister and lower, and every time I sit there and I go, okay, at what point will this end? At what point? Like, I'm starting to think that GameStop, the GME thing and Doge they're basically a money printing machine for BlackRock to fucking, redistribute money from idiots. That's another hypothesis. I'm not saying that it's, that some of that stuff is, again, it's 50-50 on that shit. I don't know what's going on with GameStop and stuff. But I'm saying that not one person is saying, you know what, maybe if we cut off people's only way for upward mobility, that people are going to be basically serfs. We're going to be in a feudal system, and there's going to be no upward mobility whatsoever in the economy worldwide. You'll have nothing and you'll be happy, right? They'll be able to, but also if they own your house, then all they got to do is threaten you with homelessness for having an opinion. That's fascism, isn't it? Isn't fascism really just, what would life be like under fascism? Okay, well, let's just say that you'd never own a house and you're renting. Well, they can kick you out anytime they want. Tenants don't have any rights. They can not repair things. They can not do anything because they don't have to, because they can just kick you out if you make too much noise. But also, they own the media and they own all the other stuff and the corporate interests, and you start speaking up against those corporate interests, then why can they not just kick you out of your house? Why can't they just evict you, make up a reason and evict you from your house? They all own it. It's the same people. They can get you shut down so you can't even talk about it on the internet because you're problematic and cancel you. They just shut you down. Does it bother nobody that Amazon shared all of Gab's fucking data with the government? I signed up to Gab because I register everything. I reserve my username. I'm on a list now. Great. It'd be really cool if those people that I hate and am fighting also own my house and my food source and my income source. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Cool. We're there. Then I see that this is the thing, right? This is the thing that's got me incensed. Just as you think, because the house buying up their neighborhoods of houses, look that up. The Wall Street Journal. This isn't kook stuff. This is not actually happening. Houses being swept up and bought for like 40% over asking for cash. Nobody can buy a house. You can't buy. You can't rent. You know, something's fishy's going on, and it's worldwide. It's not just America. But I was like, that's pretty fucking evil, isn't it? It's pretty evil. That's people's livelihood. Oh, surely they can't be that evil every time. You know, every time you get the evidence, you go, this, you know, co-opting of the fake, you know, the trans movement and trans rights, this co-opting of the rainbow flag. Like, how low will they go? They can't be that low. Surely. My idealism kicks in. Surely they can't be that low. They can't be. Nobody is that evil. Surely. And they keep proving us wrong. And then they do just dastardly, awful, vile things. And then they're buying up the houses. And then I find out that this pandemic, you know, like all of our lovely authoritarian friends have fucking shown their true colors. Okay. By declaring anyone who fucking needed a minute. I read in my psych textbook, by the way, that we're hardwired to, if people cover their faces, to not trust them. That's like a thing. Okay. So they're not only trying to decouple us from our identity, like our material reality in terms of sex and class, but they're also trying to detach us from our eyes and ears and our observations on what is true. And this is the thing that I find really concerning. And this is the thing where the environment is correct, because when you see the fact that people can just en masse stand up and panic buy and clear the shelves, if you can get people to do that, you can get them to do anything. And the state of people's heads at the moment, where they're scrambling for normalcy, they're struggling. I'm seeing the dissonance on LinkedIn. I talked about it at the beginning, seeing it. They're trying to make things make sense, and it doesn't make sense, because we're heading into like a techno-fascism. This is unprecedented. Okay. Now, COVID, fuck, this lab leak shit. Well, Jesus. Okay. That was the first thing. I was like, well, okay. We're talking about the lab. Okay, fine. What? Trump? Okay. Whatever. Okay. We all know. I'm pausing right now because it's YouTube, right? But then we find out that all along that there's a possibility that there's a highly effective treatment that was cheap and out of patent, easy to produce, cheap to produce. Meanwhile, we're being force-fed vaccines that were rushed to market that are proving to have side effects. And it turns out that the criteria for those vaccines to even make it to market were that there needs to be no viable treatment. And then I find out that they're silencing people who are suggesting said treatment, including doctors and the people on LinkedIn. I mean, you know, suggesting deep breathing exercises. That went well. I'm just saying, like, this is, you know, that thing. And now, having read that yesterday, and then you see John McAfee die, and you go, fuck off, he did. He killed himself. Yeah, just like Epstein did. Sure thing. I wrote a thing about when they banned QAnon. I've seen them doing this to the subreddits when it comes to stock, with the meme stocks. They attach them to QAnon. They say that they're a cult. It's a pattern. They're a cult. This is why I've stopped saying it's a cult, even though it's the biggest cult of all. They're using cult psychology, but they're Darvo, right? They're fucking turning it around on accusing everyone else of being in a cult. They're powerful. When the cult of the United States is the fucking biggest cult of all. But they're basically making people out to be crazy and outliers and, don't be silly, and getting the mainstream media to just lie to our faces and deny what we're seeing and deny that we know anything, calling all these people idiots and Redditors and, all of that sort of stuff, and trying to post like racist shit and like Pepe frogs and all that stuff to try and get the community taken down. Okay. And it just feels futile. It's like, well, what do we do? You go back on LinkedIn and you try to pretend. You can try to pretend that you don't see things. Let's just do Emperor's New Clothes. It's a matter of survival under fascism to pretend, right? It's why people are so afraid of being cancelled, because they know deep down, I'm not afraid because I know what the enemy is. I'm not afraid of it because I know that I want to know that if I die trying. And that's one of those things. And I'm not being melodramatic. I'm just saying I'm saying there's a turning point. We can turn it around if enough people are paying attention to this. But I don't think I have. There's days I feel optimistic and days I'm deeply worried. And when I saw the drug thing, that's worrying. When I see the housing, that's worrying. That's a stacked deck. Okay. When I see like just what I'm up against, and I see that our own government's passed laws that basically allow them to censor anything that they deem to be like harmful, which again, I hope they do. And I hope that, again, I think you have to have good, you can't be like the sky is falling and you say, well, you can point out the problems with the law. But I find it very odd that it's pretty much the same thing that tried to be passed in 2009, and it was opposed by the Liberal Party and the Greens. This time it was passed by the Liberal Party and the Greens. Okay. Pretty much bipartisan support. That's concerning. And that came from the loony right. That was because Stephen Fielding had the balance of power, and he needed to get a loony right fucking Christian internet policy up for the sake of for the good of the children. It's concerning, isn't it? And putting the government in charge, the people who have systematically harassed anyone on welfare to the point where I think, was it 2,000 people have actually taken their own lives because of this robo-debt thing? And you don't think that they're going to misuse that? Okay, fair enough. Cool. So what I'll do is I'll try. And that's, that's the thing with the new company. I'll try. That's all I can do. Because it's better that I know I tried and you lose than, but again, it's just being you can let this get to you. You can, I can see how people argue in circles and you get sick of it and all of that. And it fatigues you, and it is so tempting to just retreat. And unfortunately, I can't retreat because I've said so much already under my real name. I can't disappear. I can't pretend that I didn't say things. And I'm just going to keep filling out the box like they want me to. But I'm going to use it. It's malicious compliance. They ask me how I'm doing. They ask me what I'm thinking. So I'm telling them the truth. That's all I can do. And hope for the best, and just fucking, it's all we can do. But I'm warning, I just want more people to just be calling this what it is, because once we know what it is, we know what we need to do. The problem is that people are using euphemisms. They're misdiagnosing the problem severely. And you can't, we're up against massive amounts of suppression. So far, I've been okay because, largely probably because I'm anonymous. If I was famous, I'd probably be cancelled well and truly by now. Most people just think I'm a fuckhead, and being underestimated is actually a good thing in this case, because I can say things and we can share it quietly and share it around and those sorts of things. And I can just quietly build tech and quietly invest, and we just quietly build alternatives and just hope that there's some shred of a market left where the market can decide and the good guys win And I get to prove myself right all along. Hope so. Anyway, I don't know if this was a worthwhile speech. I was just thinking, and it probably it came full circle in the end, but I'm sure that, whatever. It's 2.5 hours. I don't know if anyone's going to watch, but whatever. Feel free to share. Share timestamps. Put timestamps in it and share that shit. Okay. But, I just, we have to stay optimistic. And even if we just hang out, as long as we can until we're set up with our own data centers and our own things. And again, that's futile too, because ultimately, at the end of the day, if the police come knocking, the police come knocking. And I think that if there's an injustice, I think it really is a test of your values and who you are as a person if you're willing to sacrifice yourself for what's right. And I always have been. And that might seem crazy and it might seem reckless, but, I don't have a choice. It's just who I am. It's my character. And I hope that we can get back to being good people again, and this overreach and absolute taking the piss of what was supposed to be an extraordinarily temporary situation in an extraordinary time. We need to push back on this. Okay. I'm sorry, but if you've been vaccinated, you can fucking travel. Get fucked. Okay. That was the deal. And please try not to lose your heads. You're not crazy. The reason you're confused is because you think it's the left and you don't know your theory. You don't know it very well. You've been told that they're the far left, but they're not. Okay. The paramilitary like limb of the United States government. Okay. So let's go from there. What are we going to do with that information? Well, call them the Twitler youth for a start. Call it out where you see it and be brave, because I truly believe there's more of us than there are of them. I truly believe that if enough that people are just, they're simmering. Like that interaction on the street the other day gave me hope, because they might not be talking about it in polite company, but if you give someone permission to talk, you'd be surprised what they'll say. And I've always been that person who gives people permission, unless you're a fuckwit on my stream. But generally, I give people permission and I give them space to think and space to express themselves. And you'd be surprised how wise people can be. Even our young woke people who are wrong-headed, but they've been misled. And I think that that's where we need to get better at the argument and not laugh at these kids, because obviously they're victims. They've been recruited into this thing. Okay. Much like the Hitler Youth were. And we'll do the best we can. Let's be brave every day. Start a magazine called Brave Every Day. We'll start day by day, post by post, tech by tech, fill in the form. I won't fuck you. Unless it's subpoenaed or I'm arrested. I can't protect you from that. The more money I have, the more freedom we have, because then I have a data center and I have investment. If you want to invest in this, then that would be great, because, I have plans and I have the ability. But I will use my voice as long as I can. I'll use my words as long as I'm allowed to use them. I will define them correctly and use them as intended, and I will not allow myself to be overwritten. I will not have my firmware reset. Okay? 42 years old. I'm smart. I'm a good person. Go fuck yourself, America. Anyway, read your Chomsky. Refresh yourself with Marx. Refresh yourself with socialists. Read David Graeber. Sign up to my shit when I fucking get around to it, but I didn't, because I'm tinkering and I'm scared and I don't want you on it because I keep changing things. But I'll get there in the end. If you want to become a patron, you can do that too, but I'm not going to stay on Patreon. I'll have my own payment thing in the next few months. But if you want to, I've got forms, I've got all that stuff. Fucking put your money where your mouth is. Stop fucking giving controlled opposition cameo money. Actually support people who are trying to fight it. Anyway, if you have any ideas on what we can do, if you want to write for Brave Every Day, you want to make a video, you want to do anything, write a song, publish a book. We'll figure out a way. We've got the networks. Okay. We've got the networks to be able to do this thing. So I love you. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for your precious life seconds. I got to go do mum shit now and finish off my tech, and I'll give you an invite soon. I know I keep saying tomorrow, but that's what I do. I say tomorrow and I mean fucking soon. Soon. I love you. Bye.